Anyway, meet me in the book room, also known as the broom. Hey, the parable of the lake bed, the parable of the riverside crag, the parable of the stone tower, or the parable of the orchid. The parable of the lake bed.
And so it happened that I was strolling on the water's edge after a long week of harvest, as the wind whistled through the peaks of the Ruxiguado. As I came to the heap, I again noticed the great serpent, straightening out the rocks and restoring life to the battered conifers of some long-lost land. The serpent was vast. They seemed larger even than when they had last come through the mountain valley where we made our home. As I approached, the serpent swung its majestic visage towards me. Dropping to a prayer position, I called out to them,
"Great Drehmal, I had not anticipated finding you here, but I must humbly request your assistance. Can you spare a moment of your time?"
In a primordial rumble which echoed across the sound, the serpent laughed.
"Time is immaterial to me, small one. Though I must soon rest, I shall not do so until my work is finished. What is it that you wonder?"
I looked into their gleaming eye with some trepidation, for they were taller alone than most of the trees in our homeland. Finally, I began to speak.
"Though I have worked in the fields each day this week until my fingers have become raw and bleeding, even a bountiful harvest strikes me as useless when framed in the context of your work. Among the great chaos of the lands in the center of the sea, you find order, and you seem to create the water we drink and the food we labor to grow. What can I possibly do that will contribute in a meaningful way to this world that you change at a moment's notice?"
The serpent regarded me for a long moment, and then formed themselves into a coil which could have easily reached around our entire valley. They spoke in the same deep voice, but it carried clear notes of kindness.
"Dramari, your work is no less important. By following your path and working hard to meet the demands of your soul to learn, create, and find happiness, you fulfill your station. Though you are small and I am big, I am doing no different. After all, it is with the act of repairing what is broken, of bringing order and hope to this place of despair, that brings my soul joy."
Still in reverent shock that the serpent was addressing me, I stood still for a moment and considered their words, before deciding that they did not satisfy me. Daring to speak again, I lifted up my voice.
"If what you say is true, why have you made survival in this place so difficult? Slaughtering animals and spending days in the fields to reap the harvest does not bring me any joy."
The serpent nodded and flicked their gigantic tail, sending ripples throughout the calm water.
"It was not my decision to make, but that of my forebears. Like you, I operate within some constraints, but rather than turning to frustration, we must learn to take pleasure in our work. For example, take the walk that you have embarked upon today. Does the air not taste sweeter now that you have spent the week laboring to breathe as you worked in the fields? And is the scenery not more stunning when you have spent so long in the confines of one place? Remember my words. Do the unpleasant things that you must, but take pleasure in the positive impacts of that work, and when the undesirable labor is complete, work toward the creative yearnings of your soul with no less vigor. I believe you will find that a labor of love is no burden at all."
Nodding my head and bowing deeply, I thanked the serpent for their wisdom before departing the way I had come. I recalled my wooden flute, which I had resolved to put down until the harvest was complete, and suddenly was filled with a great desire to play. Though there were other tasks which would need to be done before the cold arrived, I spent the few hours remaining in the day learning the notes of a new melody.
Whoa.
I stole the book, and it's called Erudite's Teachings.
Oh,
So, your turn.
right there. Wait. Why is it already on page 11?
I don't know. I didn't open it.
There we go. This is... What's this? The Parable of the Orchard. Orchid! Orchard!
Orchard.
Orchard!
Oops. Orchard.
Orchard.
Yeah.
I was a young scribe's apprentice in those days, traveling far away from my homeland of Palisade in the land called Dreh'noha. My master, Pelai, had been called for because of our people's reputation for wisdom and their ability to keep accurate records. While my master was away meeting with the local lord, I was tasked with beginning to count the total number of healthy trees in his orchard. While I began working with vigor, I soon lost motivation when I crested a small hill only to see trees stretching nearly to the horizon. Resolving to simply estimate the number of trees by doing some measurements and approximation, I decided to lay down in the shade for a nap. I had only begun to lose consciousness when a great eruption of earth nearby shook me awake. In a panic, I grabbed my short sword and jumped backwards. Although I feared I was being attacked by one of the dragons of old, I saw green scales and gnarled horns, and I knew I was with the great serpent, Drehmal themselves. The serpent moved slowly and sluggishly, slithering forwards with what appeared to be a great lethargy. Knowing the tales of the prophets, I called out to them.
Oh, great serpent, where is your destination? Is there something I can do to assist you?
Their head moving slightly around, one eye came to regard me, and a deep, slightly slurring voice resonated through the windy orchard.
Small one, I only ask that you have patience. A job well done can take an unfathomably long time, but when you are finally finished and there is nothing left to do, you can rest easily and contentedly. So work hard, follow your path, and do not grow frustrated when the going gets tough. Soon you will be able to lay down your head, and your dreams will be all the sweeter.
I glanced down at my very incomplete notes with new determination, but recognizing that the serpent was not behaving quite like the legends described, I allowed myself to ask one more question.
Great serpent, are you unwell? I don't know what my people would do without you around to guide us.
Stopping in their tracks for a moment, the serpent craned their sinuous neck towards me.
Drehmari, I have taught your people all that I know, and at last it is time for me to rest. Please do not despair. I will not die, but my work was long, and for now I am satisfied. I am so proud of you. You will excel in my absence.
Tears suddenly began cascading down my face in a torrent.
We will do our best. I will do my best.
I continued to call out to them as they turned northward again and began traveling towards a distant lake and the 3 peaks beyond it. As they moved past a rolling hill, I saw the tip of their scaly tail seem to wave at me, and then they were gone. Filled with newfound purpose along with a great sorrow, I turned in a tear-soaked but righteous audit sheet to my master. From then on, I lived a very patient, devoted life.
Wow.
Wow, he had to count a lot.
I didn't have an account.
Just-
Teachings.
Cool.
Look at that.
Sharo.
That's a $10 word.
You can have error days as well. Next up, the Parable of the Riverside Crag.
When I was young, I was nothing but a cowardly bandit. Though not many dared to travel then, those who did would often find need to ford a river, which runs far to the south of this place at a certain shallows. It was there, in the shadow of a tall crag, that I concealed myself behind a bush. Then, to my delight, I saw a tempting target approach the river's edge, a solitary traveller, wearing sensible clothes and carrying a large travelling bag. Around her neck was fastened a large, luminous gem, which glinted with hints of green and gold. I withdrew my bow and nocked an arrow. I would wait until she was halfway across, then leap out from behind my bush and confront her. Helpless, with nowhere to run, she would be forced to abandon her belongings. I steeled myself in anticipation and prepared to strike, but suddenly my knees failed me. The ground seemed to explode, and an overwhelming noise echoed all around. Suddenly, behind me, a massive form rose out of the crag. Long and sinuous, it wrapped itself around the rocky peak, and finally revealed itself to be the great serpent themselves. Filled with awe and briefly forgetting my mission, I sat on the settling dirt behind the bush. A flock of seabirds landed on their huge horns as they held their head impossibly high over the scene. I opened my mouth and closed it, but was unsure of what to do or say. Glancing behind me briefly, I was annoyed to see my quarry darting away like a frightened step-rabbit. Deeper than thunder and twice as loud, the serpent's voice echoed through the veil, calm but stern.
Small one, why did you seek harm upon my sibling's child?
Shame rising up my face, I stared at a nearby clump of grass.
I just wanted that gemstone. It would fetch a good price at market. I would be able to eat well for weeks.
My stomach gurgled in agreement. The serpent nodded slightly and curled the tip of their gargantuan tail around the end of a long vine which dangled from their chin.
I see. You seek your own sustenance at the expense of another's.
At this point, the embarrassment became too much. I must confess that I lashed out at them.
Yes, I do. I am short, thin, and weak. My mother and father are deathly ill, and I'm not going to be able to take care of them if I cannot eat. So therefore, yes, I seek my own sustenance. This world is unfair, and though a god like you might not empathize, perhaps you could consider showing a little mercy.
The serpent blinked long and slow, and then spoke again.
Your rage is justified, but let me ask you to consider the other perspective. What if you carried a full bag of food and medicine for your kin from a faraway place, but were accosted and forced to leave it behind?
Though I knew it was a losing argument, I nonetheless fired back once more.
That situation is impossible. I would easily beat any lowly ambusher and return in time for dinner. You have ruined my chances today, and now I must return home. Hopefully my family is still alive when I do.
The serpent lingered as I stormed away, still flustered and angry with myself for being caught. Their sonorous voice rang out as I left.
Tamari, know that all of us must take our independent path. While mine may be longer, yours is just as important. When your road crosses with that of another traveler, see if they travel in the same direction, but do not force theirs to end or take an unnatural detour. Instead, weave your paths together into a greater tapestry of creation, and you will be all the happier for it.
Finally, crossing behind a bluff, I left their intense gaze and took the quickest route back to the village. When I arrived, I saw a crowd gathered in the common area. To my surprise, I learned that the traveler I had nearly robbed of all their possessions was a Vemari, dispatched from far away to heal the malefic plague. That evening, after eating dinner with my much-recovered parents, I went to the standing stones and prayed to the great serpent for the very first time in my long life of service and devotion.
Whoa.
Hexware's teachings.
Hmm.
And finally, the parable of the stone tablet for you.
Of the stone tablet.
It was well into my tenure as the head teacher of Drehua when a year came that was uniquely hot and dry. Few children of the Ruxihuadal flowed at all, and even the mighty Eru was nothing more than a lazy stream. It is said that when times are their hardest, everyone seeks a grey head, and so it was that I found myself faced with a contingent of area farmers seeking advice for how they could save the season's harvest. My preliminary suggestions included diverting more water from the Eru and trading with the Karlans, but of course these had already been tried and were insufficient. Unsure and deeply troubled, I nonetheless assured the farmers that I would think of a solution. That day, I traveled as fast as my old legs could carry me to all the rune carvers in Palisade and asked their advice. While some had heard of a rune that could create water that was used long ago in the Age of Aspects and Empires, It had been lost to time. Suddenly possessed by an energy unfitting for a dignified old Dramari nun, I knew what I had to do. Retrieving my walking stick and canteen and telling my husband where I was going, I set off along a recent slither mark. Though my back and knees started to ache, I continued on my adventure all day. It was in the early evening, as the Turan bathed the world in spectacular fiery hues, when I came to where the great serpent was growing a stand of mighty oaks on a hillside. Placing my walking stick at my side, I knelt and bowed my head, before shouting as loudly as I could in my reedy, failing voice.
O Drehmal, Realmbinder, Shaper Serpent, Liege of all, final aspect and last divine, my great friend and mentor, I humbly require your assistance.
The serpent's horns stopped glowing, and they gently and fluidly curled their body around the hillside to face me. Their enormous green eyes looked as kind as usual.
Ah, Sherwa, you are always welcome company. Thank you for guiding your people well. They make our realm a better place.
Despite myself, I could not help but smile widely when they complimented me.
You are too kind. We are fortunate to have a creator who cares about us. If I am honest, I do not come under the best of circumstances. The rivers have nearly run dry, and the heat is unbearable for our poor crops. I am looking for a rune that was used in the days long past to create drinkable water. Could you teach it to me?
The serpent closed their eyes for a moment in thought, and then spoke.
I see. You are right to seek your own solution to this problem.
Suddenly beginning to move, they rested their great head on the meadow grasses. I shuddered at their colossal size. Then they spoke once more.
Climb onto my head. I believe I know where to find the knowledge you seek.
Laboriously, I began to climb their huge scales with the help of the tip of their tail, and found a comfortable place to sit. Then they began to slither. A great volume of air moved through my long grey and white hair, as I saw the lands move past me like a blur. Finally, we arrived at what appeared to be an ancient fort of mountainous proportions, sitting in a grey wasteland which stretched to the horizon. The serpent's horns glowed once more, and a stone as large as our town and the temple combined came to rest near me. On it were carved many runes alongside descriptions of their functions, written in ancient Riselch. After squinting for a few moments, I identified a few runes that seemed to be helpful for our community, and laboriously copied them onto my calligraphy scroll. As I worked, the serpent spoke.
Sherwa, I have told you many things throughout the years, but this is among my closest held beliefs. Individual Dramari may be transient, but that does not mean that your work and your paths are unimportant. By using your memories and awareness, you can accumulate great knowledge throughout your lifetimes. By passing that knowledge on to your children directly, you can make their lives easier and allow for more time to be spent on creation rather than survival. But memory is short, and even the most important practices are lost to time. Therefore, you must teach your people to write. By recording the successes and mistakes, the achievements and the tragedies, future Dramari can begin their paths from a strong foundation instead of a few bricks, even if those bricks are strong and solid.
Finally, looking up from my work, I nodded enthusiastically.
It will most certainly be done. Thank you for everything. I have lived a truly blessed life.
Drehmal seemed to smile, revealing their long sharp teeth and forked tongue. Then they took me back to the outskirts of our town. My husband could not believe his eyes when he saw me dismount the towering form of my god and friend.
That was great.
Shirua's teachings.
Sure what?
It's Shirua.
Oh, cool. Well, we should head back to ourselves with our newfound knowledge.
Our newfound knowledge. For the archives.
Yeah, we can put the books away, we can put his stuff away. We can get oak saplings
Oh yeah, we could
to
probably have like
feed
a
the
million
guy.
of them in our base.
Yeah, hopefully. We need to feed the guy, I think, is the plan.
We need to make him love us.
There once was a worm unlike all the others. Like many creatures of the earth, the worm slithered upon the ground. Like many creatures of the earth, the worm was meek and unassuming. But unlike its brethren, this worm had potential. One day, while the worm was going about its daily routine, it was approached by two others, a beast of the sky and a beast of the depths. The beast of the depths asked the worm,
Dear worm, do you not see your potential? Grab it. Take destiny in your own hands and become all you are meant to be.
The beast of the sky rebuked the beast of the depths.
Fool that you are! You cannot see that the worm is unfit for such heights. After all, the worm is a simple beast of the earth, not divine in the slightest.
The worm, however, ignored both. It knew its time had not yet come, and that rash action would spell its doom. And yet it knew that its day would come, and that it must be prepared for the opportunity. The next day, a day very similar to the previous one, the worm was approached by a worm much larger than itself. The large worm berated the smaller.
Idiot, you're blind to your own fate. Even if you reach divinity, death comes to us all in time.
But the small worm was not concerned about such matters. It was happy with this life, and it would be happy with a divine life. Such stations do not matter to the humble worm. On the third day, the small worm woke up to a cacophonous noise. The beasts of the sky and the beasts of the depths had gone to war. The world around the worm was burning and crashing down, yet even now the small worm did not fret. It found the largest tree in the land and was content to curl in its roots, confident that the wizened tree would protect it. Alas, the assault of the beasts proved too much even for the grandsire, and it, too, fell. With the last of its energy, it bestowed power and divinity onto the humble worm, and thus the worm became a worm.